Admiral Tejo stood on the bridge of the Galactic Confederation flagship Eternal Dawn. His four eyes moved across the large screen showing the battle. The small human fleet should have been easy to defeat. The Confederation had more ships, better weapons, and thousands of years of battle experience. Yet the humans were not only defending themselves, they were pushing forward. "Admiral, they're breaking through in Sector 7, said Commander Jiwoo. Her scales changed color to pale blue, showing her confusion. "Their ships are somehow absorbing our energy weapons." Taiho blinked his four eyes in sequence, a sign of deep surprise. The Confederation had conquered 17 star systems with those same weapons. They had defeated the mighty Vesperian Empire in less than one cycle. How could these humans, who had only recently learned to travel between stars, have found a way to counter their weapons so quickly? "Send in the Talon squadrons," Tejo ordered. Full dispersal pattern. As he gave the order, the main screen showed something that made everyone on the bridge fall silent. A small human ship suddenly sped up to an impossible speed. It aimed directly at one of the Confederation's large cruisers and crashed into it. Both ships exploded in a blinding flash of light. They sacrificed their ship," whispered Jiwoo. The pilot stayed aboard. Taiho felt his primary heart skip a beat. In 300 years of military service, he had never seen such a tactic. The Confederation valued efficiency above all in warfare. This was something else entirely. "Admiral," called the communications officer, "we're receiving a message from the human flagship." The screen changed to show a human female. Her face showed signs of tiredness, but her eyes burned with determination. "This is Captain Minji of the Earth Defense Force," she said simply. "We would prefer to end this without more deaths." "Your choice." Taiho's membrane fluttered in surprise. The humans were offering peace after the Confederation had attacked them? This was not how war worked in his experience. "Open a channel," he ordered. When the connection was made, Taiho spoke carefully. "This is Admiral Tejo of the Galactic Confederation. Your resistance is unexpected." Captain Minji's face showed no fear. "We've been fighting each other for thousands of years, Admiral. We hoped we'd left war behind when we reached the stars. But if threatened, we remember our old ways quickly." "You destroyed one of our cruisers with a single ship," Taiho said. "Explain this tactic." "We call it sacrifice," Minji replied. "Something we've learned through our long history of warfare. Sometimes one must give everything to protect others." The concept was alien to Tejo. Confederation military doctrine was built on preserving strength, calculating losses, and ensuring victory through superior numbers. The idea of intentionally losing resources for tactical advantage seemed illogical. "Hold position," Taiho ordered, then cut the transmission. He turned to his second-in-command. "Jiwoo, what do we know about human history?" Jiwoo consulted her data pad. "Very little, Admiral. They achieved space travel only 50 years ago. Their technology is primitive compared to ours. They should have been an easy conquest." "Should have been," Tejo repeated. "Yet here we are." He walked to the tactical display, studying the battle formation. The humans had positioned their ships in a pattern he didn't recognize from any known military doctrine. It seemed chaotic, unpredictable. "Admiral," called the sensor officer, "we're detecting unusual energy readings from 3 human vessels. They appear to be preparing to—" "I'm not sure what they're doing." Before Taiho could respond, the 3 human ships suddenly accelerated toward different parts of the Confederation fleet. Unlike the earlier ramming attack, these ships released thousands of small objects before changing course. "Evasive action," Tejo shouted, but it was too late. The small objects, simple missiles with minimal guidance systems, detonated near the engines of 12 Confederation ships. The explosions weren't powerful enough to destroy the vessels, but they disabled their propulsion systems. "They're targeting our engines, not our weapons or command centers," Jiwoo said. Her scales now shifting to yellow, the color of alarm. "They're disabling rather than destroying." Taiho watched as human ships moved in to surround the disabled Confederation vessels. They weren't firing, just waiting. "Admiral," the communications officer called again. "Captain Minji is hailing us again." When her face appeared on screen, Minji looked even more tired than before, but her voice remained steady. "Admiral Tejo, we have disabled 12 of your ships. We could destroy them, but we choose not to. Their crews will remain unharmed. Consider this a demonstration of our intentions, which are," Tejo asked. "We don't want war. We don't want conquest. We simply want to exist. If you leave our space, we will not pursue." If you return in peace, we will welcome you. If you return with weapons, we will respond in kind. And now you have seen a small sample of how humans fight when threatened." Taeho considered his options. The Confederation had never retreated from a conquest. It would be a mark of shame on his record. Yet continuing this battle seemed increasingly unwise. These humans fought in ways he couldn't predict. "You have disabled our ships using primitive weapons," Taeho observed. "Why not destroy them?" "Because we value life, even the lives of those who attack us," Minji replied. "We've learned through centuries of warfare that the true victory isn't in how many you kill, but in how many you save, including your enemies." This concept was completely foreign to Confederation military thinking. Wars ended when one side was defeated, not when both sides walked away. "I need to consult with the High Council," Taeho said finally. "You have 1 hour," Minji replied. "After that, we will be forced to take more decisive action." When the transmission ended, Jiwoo approached Taeho. "Admiral, our analysis of their weapons shows they are indeed primitive. Their ships have minimal shielding. We still outnumber them. We could overwhelm them with a full attack." Taeho looked at the tactical display again. "At what cost, Commander? They've already shown they're willing to sacrifice ships and pilots to disable our vessels. What else might they be willing to do if pushed further?" He turned to the communications officer. "Send a message to the High Council. Include all battle data. Request immediate instructions." While waiting for a response, Taeho studied the human ships more carefully. Their design was inefficient by Confederation standards, bulky with exposed sections that should have been protected. Yet they moved with surprising speed and coordination. "Admiral," said the science officer, "I've been analyzing the human ship that sacrificed itself. The pilot could have escaped. There was a small craft attached that detached shortly before impact, but it was empty." "You mean the pilot chose to stay aboard?" Taeho asked. "Yes, Admiral. It appears to have been a deliberate choice." Taeho felt his membrane flutter again. The concept was difficult to process. In the Confederation, preserving trained personnel was a military priority. The idea of intentionally losing a skilled pilot was wasteful, illogical, yet it had worked. That single action had destroyed one of their most powerful cruisers and killed over 300 crew members. The communications console chimed. "Admiral, response from the High Council." Taeho read the message and felt his heart sink. The Council was ordering a full attack, dismissing the human tactics as lucky accidents. He looked at the human fleet on the screen. They remained in formation, waiting for his response. Captain Minji's words echoed in his mind. "We've been fighting each other for thousands of years. The Confederation had conquered many species, but none that had spent their entire history fighting themselves. What kind of warriors did that create? What kind of tactics would such a species develop?" For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Taeho felt something new. Doubt. "Admiral?" Jiwoo prompted. "The Council's orders?" Taeho made his decision. "Open a channel to the human captain." When Minji's face appeared, Taeho spoke clearly. "Captain, I propose a temporary ceasefire to discuss terms. The Confederation wishes to understand humanity better before further action is taken." Minji's expression showed surprise, then cautious relief. "We accept, Admiral. Shall we arrange a neutral meeting point?" "Yes," Taeho agreed. "And, Captain, I have many questions about how humans fight wars. I hope instead I can teach you how we make peace, Admiral," Minji replied. "That's the more important lesson humanity has learned." Professor Dongyun moved slowly through the great library of Axion Prime. His old claws carefully turned the pages of books and scrolls collected from across the galaxy. As the Confederation's top expert on alien cultures, the High Council had called him to help them understand the humans. The library was quiet, except for the soft hum of the air systems. Tall shelves filled with knowledge from 1,000 worlds surrounded him. Dongyun had spent most of his long life here, studying other species. But humans were different. He heard footsteps approaching and looked up to see Admiral Taeho. The military leader still wore his formal uniform despite the late hour. "You asked to see me, Professor?" Taeho said. "Yes, Admiral. Please sit." Dongyun pointed to a chair designed for Confederation bodies. "I've been studying what little we know about human history. I believe we have made a serious mistake." "Explain," said Taeho, his secondary eyes narrowing. Dongyun placed a small device on the table between them. It projected images into the air. Pictures of humans fighting each other throughout their history. Most species discover how to travel between stars after they achieve peace on their home planet. Dongyun explained. The Vesperians needed 400 years of peace before they reached the stars. The Myriad Collective needed 623 years. Even our people needed 300 years without war. The images changed to show humans in different battles across many time periods. Some fought with simple weapons made of metal. Others used more advanced guns and vehicles. Humans never stopped fighting each other, Dongyun continued. Not for a single generation. They reached the stars while still divided into different countries that were actively fighting wars. Taiho's membrane fluttered in disbelief. That's impossible. The resources needed for space travel is exactly why they are so dangerous, Dongyun interrupted. Admiral, we fight wars of calculation. We fight for resources, for territory. Humans fight wars for everything. Religion, resources, ideas, revenge, sometimes simply to test themselves against worthy opponents. The projection showed an old human battlefield. Soldiers ran directly into enemy fire. Most importantly, Admiral, they have a concept that is foreign to every other spacefaring race we've met. They call it sacrifice. They willingly give their lives, not just risk them, for tactical advantage or to protect others. Taiho remembered the human ship ramming his cruiser. What are you suggesting, Professor? End this conflict immediately, Dongyun said firmly. The Confederation has never faced an enemy like humanity. We thought we knew war, Admiral. We don't, they do. Taiho stood and walked to a window overlooking the capital city. Lights from countless buildings stretched to the horizon. The High Council has ordered a full attack, he said quietly. They believe the initial battle was a fluke, that our superior numbers and technology will prevail. Dongyun's scales darkened with worry. Then the Council is making a grave error. Let me show you something else. He changed the projection to show a human city in ruins. This is from their planet's second global war. They called it World War II. Notice the destruction. Taiho studied the image. Total devastation. Yes, and this was before they had nuclear weapons or space travel, Dongyun said. Now look at this. The image changed to show the same city, completely rebuilt with tall buildings and busy streets. This is the same place just 20 years later, Dongyun explained. Humans don't just excel at destruction, Admiral. They excel at rebuilding, at adapting, at surviving. They fight harder when they're losing. Taiho turned back to face the professor. You've studied many species. How do humans compare? They are unique, Dongyun said. Most species evolve to fill a specific role in their ecosystem. Predator, prey, scavenger. Humans evolve to be adaptable. They can eat almost anything. Live almost anywhere. Learn almost any skill. He changed the projection again, showing humans living in different environments. Frozen wastelands, burning deserts, dense jungles, and modern cities. And their approach to war reflects this adaptability, Dongyun continued. They don't have one way of fighting. They have thousands. They study their enemies and change their tactics accordingly. Taiho sat back down, his membrane fluttering with concern. The ceasefire I arranged will end tomorrow. The Council expects me to resume the attack. Then you must convince them otherwise, Dongyun said urgently. I've found references in human history to something they call guerrilla warfare. Even when they lose conventional battles, they continue fighting from the shadows. They never surrender completely. The Council won't accept this, Taiho said. They've already dismissed my concerns as cowardice. Dongyun's scale shifted to a deep blue of determination. Then I must speak to them directly. Bring me to the Council meeting. The High Council chamber was a vast room with a circular table in the center. 12 council members sat around it, their scales showing various colors of irritation and impatience. Admiral Taiho stood at attention while Professor Dongyun arranged his materials. This is highly irregular, said Councillor Minho, the eldest member. Military matters are not the concern of scholars. With respect, Councillor, Dongyun replied, this is not merely a military matter. It is a matter of species survival. Murmurs spread around the table. Councillor Gina, head of the science division, leaned forward. Explain yourself, Professor. Dongyun activated his projector. Honored Council, I have spent the last 3 days studying human history. What I've found should concern us all. He showed them images of human wars throughout history. Humans have been fighting each other continuously for thousands of years. Unlike us, they did not achieve planetary peace before developing space travel. All the more reason to subdue them quickly, said Counselor Hayuk, the military commander. A divided species cannot stand against our united forces. That would be true for any other species we've encountered, Donghyun agreed. But humans are different. Their constant warfare has not weakened them. It has made them masters of combat. He showed footage from the recent battle, focusing on the human ship that sacrificed itself to destroy the Confederation cruiser. This tactic was not a desperate last stand, Donghyun explained. It was a calculated sacrifice. Throughout human history, they have shown willingness to accept losses that we would consider unacceptable. One lucky attack does not make them invincible, Counselor Hayuk argued. Our forces still outnumber theirs 10-1. Numbers mean little against an enemy who doesn't fight by our rules, Donghyun countered. Humans have a concept called asymmetric warfare. When faced with a stronger enemy, they don't meet them head-on. They find weaknesses. They attack supply lines. They strike and disappear. Admiral Taeho stepped forward. The professor is correct. In our brief engagement, the humans displayed tactics I've never seen in 3 centuries of military service. Counselor Gina's scales shifted to a thoughtful green. What do you propose, Professor? Peace, Donghyun said simply. Offer the humans a genuine treaty. Respect their territory. Learn from them. Learn from them, Counselor Minho scoffed. They are barely space-capable. Yet they fought our fleet to a standstill, Taeho reminded him. Donghyun changed the projection to show human scientific achievements. Their technology may be younger than ours, but it's developing at an incredible rate. They went from their first powered flight to landing on their moon in just 66 years. From their first computers to global information networks in less than 50 years. He looked at each council member in turn. If we make humans our enemies, they will never stop fighting us. Their history shows this clearly. But if we make them our allies, we gain a valuable partner, finished Counselor Gina. The council chamber fell silent as the members considered this. Finally, Counselor Minho spoke. Admiral Taeho, you've met these humans. Do you believe what the professor says? Taeho thought of Captain Minji's determined eyes. Of the pilot who stayed aboard the ship to ensure it hit its target. Of the precise way the humans had disabled rather than destroyed his ships, I do, he said firmly. We thought we knew war until we met humans. I believe we have much to learn from them, preferably as allies rather than enemies. Counselor Minho's scales shifted slowly from irritated red to cautious yellow. Very well. Admiral, you will return to the human fleet with a peace delegation. Professor Donghyun will accompany you as cultural advisor. As they left the council chamber, Taeho turned to Donghyun. Thank you, Professor. I believe you just prevented a disastrous war. Don't thank me yet, Donghyun replied. Now we must convince the humans that we truly want peace. After we attack them first, that may be the greater challenge. The neutral space station orbiting between Earth and Mars was simple but functional. Diplomat Suman adjusted her translator as she waited in the meeting room. Her scales were a calm blue, but inside she felt nervous. This was the most important meeting of her career. The door slid open and 3 humans entered. Suman recognized Captain Minji from the battle recordings. With her were 2 others, a tall male in a military uniform and a younger male in civilian clothes. Welcome, Suman said, rising from her seat. I am Diplomat Suman of the Galactic Confederation. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. Captain Minji nodded. I am Captain Minji of the Earth Defense Force. This is General Junho, our military commander, and Hyunwoo, our chief negotiator. The humans sat across the table. Suman noticed they seemed calm, not afraid to be meeting with aliens who had attacked them just days ago. The Confederation appreciates your willingness to talk, Suman began. We hope to find a peaceful solution to our misunderstanding. General Junho leaned forward. Misunderstanding? You attacked our outer colonies without warning. That seems very clear to me. Suman's young assistant Kyungho shifted uncomfortably beside her. The humans were direct, another trait Professor Donghyun had warned her about. You are right, Suman admitted. The Confederation made a grave error. We assumed Earth would be like other worlds we have encountered. We were wrong. Why did you attack us? Asked Hyunwoo, the civilian negotiator. His voice was calm but firm. Suman had prepared for this question. For 12,000 years, the Confederation has expanded through this part of the galaxy. Most species we meet either join us willingly or lack the means to resist. We became overconfident, and now? Captain Minji asked. Now we seek peace, Suman replied. The High Council has authorized me to offer terms. We propose a demilitarized zone extending 5 light years from your solar system. In exchange, the Confederation will provide technological assistance in energy production and medicine. The 3 humans exchanged glances. Then Hyunwoo smiled slightly. And what guarantees do we have that your forces won't simply regroup and return once we've lowered our defenses? The Confederation has existed for 12,000 years, Suman said. Our word is our bond. Captain Minji laughed, not a happy sound, but one that showed disbelief. We've only been in space for 50 years, but we've already learned not to trust promises without verification. Suman felt her scales shift to a lighter blue of surprise. Most species would have eagerly accepted the Confederation's offer of advanced technology. What would you suggest? She asked. General Junho spoke. We have a different proposal. Instead of creating distance between us, we suggest working together. Open borders, mutual defense agreement, and technology exchange programs with oversight teams from both sides. Suman blinked, all 4 eyes in sequence, a sign of shock she couldn't hide. You're suggesting an alliance rather than just peace? We are, confirmed Hyunwoo. Humans have learned something important from our own bloody history. Former enemies often make the strongest allies. Kyungho leaned close to whisper in Suman's ear. This is unheard of. The Council sent me to prevent further conflict, Suman interrupted quietly. Perhaps the humans understand something we don't. She turned back to the 3 humans. I will present your proposal to the High Council. But I must warn you, this approach is unusual by our standards. Unusual approaches kept us alive during our first contact with your fleet, Captain Minji replied. Perhaps they'll serve us equally well in peace. Later, in a private room on the station, Suman met with Admiral Taeho and Professor Dongyun to discuss the human proposal. An alliance? Taeho said, his membrane fluttering with surprise. Not just peace, but active cooperation? Yes, Suman confirmed. They want open borders, technology exchange, and mutual defense. Fascinating, Dongyun murmured. Most species would fear us after such an encounter. The humans instead seek to bring us closer. Can we trust them? Taeho asked. This could be a trick to learn our weaknesses. Dongyun shook his head. I don't think so. From what I've studied of human history, this fits their pattern. They often form alliances with former enemies when facing a larger unknown. The larger unknown? Suman asked. The rest of the galaxy, Dongyun explained. Humans are new to space. They know little of what's out there. By allying with us, they gain a guide and protector while they develop. And what does the Confederation gain? Taeho wondered. Dongyun's scales shifted to an excited orange. Something we've been missing for thousands of years. A fresh perspective. Humans solve problems differently than we do. Their constant conflicts force them to innovate quickly or perish. Sumin considered this. The Council expects me to secure our borders and prevent further fighting. They won't expect an alliance proposal. Then we must convince them, Taeho said firmly. I've seen humans fight. I would rather have them with us than against us. The next day, Suman returned to the meeting room where the humans waited. Their faces showed no emotion as she entered, another trait that made them hard to read. I have spoken with my superiors, Suman began. Your proposal is unexpected. The Confederation has existed for 12,000 years, and in that time, we have never formed an alliance with a species that has challenged us militarily. Is that a no? General Junho asked directly. No, Suman said. It is an opportunity. The High Council is intrigued by your proposal, but they have concerns. Hyunwoo nodded. That's reasonable. What concerns? Trust, Suman said simply. How can 2 species who met through conflict build trust quickly? Captain Minji leaned forward. By facing challenges together. We propose a joint mission. One of your ships and one of ours working together to explore the space beyond our territories. Let our people learn to work together by doing something meaningful. Suman felt her scales shift to green, the color of hope. That is a wise suggestion. A shared goal could indeed build trust. There's something else, Hyunwoo added. We've detected unusual energy readings from a star system near the edge of our space. We were planning to investigate before your fleet arrived. Perhaps this could be our first joint mission. Suman looked at the datapad Hyunwoo passed to her. The readings were indeed strange, unlike anything in the Confederation database. This would be acceptable, she said. I will recommend to the Council that we proceed with preliminary alliance discussions while our ships conduct this joint mission, General. Junyo extended his hand across the table, a human gesture Suman had studied. To new beginnings, then. Suman carefully took his hand in her claw. To new beginnings. As Suman's shuttle returned to the Confederation flagship, she reviewed the meeting in her mind. The humans were nothing like what she had expected. They were direct, practical, and surprisingly willing to cooperate after being attacked. Admiral Taiho met her in the docking bay. How did they respond? Better than we could have hoped, Suman replied. They've proposed a joint mission to build trust. A practical approach. Professor Donghyun was right about them, Taiho said as they walked through the corridor. They think differently than we do. Yes, Suman agreed. Where we see an enemy to be defeated or avoided, they see a potential ally. Where we value stability and tradition, they value adaptation and innovation. Do you believe this alliance can work? Taiho asked. Suman thought about the determined faces of the human representatives, about their willingness to move forward despite the Confederation's attack, about their practical proposal to build trust through shared work. I do, she said finally, and I believe it may change the Confederation in ways we cannot yet imagine. Taiho's membrane fluttered thoughtfully. Change is uncomfortable, so is war, Suman replied. And the humans have shown us they know more about that than we do. Perhaps they also know something about peace that we have yet to learn. Commander Jiwoo never expected to find herself on Earth. Yet here she was, 6 months after the peace treaty, training alongside human soldiers. The training base was located in a place humans called Montana, a region with wide open spaces, mountains, and clear blue skies. Again, shouted Sergeant Do-hyun, the human combat instructor. His voice was loud enough to carry across the training field. The exercise isn't complete until everyone makes it across. Jiwoo watched as her mixed team of Confederation soldiers and human Marines faced the obstacle course for the third time. The Confederation troops, with their greater strength and faster reflexes, easily handled the physical challenges. Yet they consistently failed the final objective, getting all team members safely across while under simulated enemy fire. We're doing this wrong, complained Taehyuk, a Confederation elite soldier. His scales were turning orange with frustration. The logical solution is to leave behind the wounded to ensure the mission succeeds. Sergeant Do-hyun's face hardened. That's not how we operate. Soldier. But the numbers say, Taehyuk began. War isn't just about numbers, interrupted a human Marine named Yoonji. She was smaller than the other humans but spoke with authority. Watch and learn. On their fourth attempt, Jiwoo observed as the humans showed new techniques. They created covering fire to protect their teammates. They used smoke to hide their movements. They carried injured team members on their backs. Most surprisingly to Jiwoo, the strongest humans took the most dangerous positions to protect the others. When a simulation drone wounded Taehyuk with a paint marker, Yoonji immediately changed direction. She exposed herself to simulated fire to drag him to safety. After the exercise, Taehyuk approached Yoonji. His scales had shifted to purple, the color of confusion. Why did you do that? He asked. You reduced your survival chance by at least 60% to retrieve me. Yoonji shrugged. No one gets left behind. That's the whole point. But it's not efficient, Taehyuk insisted. Maybe not for a single battle, Yoonji replied. But it builds something more important than efficiency. It builds trust. When I go into battle, I know my team will never abandon me. That makes me fight harder. Later in the officers' dining hall, Jiwoo approached Sergeant Do-hyun. The human was eating alone, studying a datapad. May I join you? Jiwoo asked. Do-hyun looked up and nodded. Please do, Commander. Jiwoo sat across from him. Your training methods are different from what we're used to. I've noticed, Do-hyun said with a small smile. Your soldiers are physically impressive, but they think about combat very differently than we do. The Confederation has conquered star systems using efficiency calculations that would never approve your tactics. Jiwoo said. Yet when we faced your fleet, you prevailed. That's what I'm trying to help your people understand, Do-hyun replied. War isn't just about who has the better ships or weapons. It's about the will to fight, the determination to continue when logic says you should surrender. Jiwoo considered this. During the battle, one of your pilots intentionally crashed into our cruiser. We couldn't understand why anyone would do that. Do-hyun's face grew serious. Lieutenant Kim. He volunteered for the mission. He knew it was one way. But why? Jiwoo asked. Why would someone choose certain death? To protect others, Do-hyun said simply. He had a family on one of the colonies you were approaching. He gave his life to give them a chance. Jiwoo's scales shifted to a deep blue of realization. This is what you're teaching in the exercises. Not just tactics, but sacrifice. Yes, Do-hyun nodded. When your soldiers fight because they're ordered to, they calculate risks and rewards. When my soldiers fight for each other, knowing we'll never abandon them, they accomplish the impossible. You're suggesting that what we see as inefficient actually creates strength? I'm suggesting that what you call inefficient we call human, Do-hyun replied. And it's kept us alive through thousands of years of trying to kill each other. He smiled. Imagine what it can do now that we're on the same side. The next morning, Jiwoo gathered her Confederation soldiers before training began. Their scales showed various colors: confusion, frustration, and uncertainty. I know this training seems strange to you, she told them. It goes against everything we've been taught about efficient warfare. Commander, said Taehyuk, the human methods make no logical sense. They risk many to save few. They expose themselves to danger unnecessarily. Yes, Jiwoo agreed. And yet they fought our fleet to a standstill with inferior technology and fewer ships. The soldiers fell silent, considering this truth. Today, Jiwoo continued, I want you to try something different. Don't think like Confederation soldiers. Think like humans. Don't calculate the most efficient path to victory. Instead, focus on protecting each other no matter the cost. But Commander, another soldier objected, that goes against our training. Yes, it does, Jiwoo said. That's exactly the point. We're learning a new way to fight, a human way. When Sergeant Do-hyun arrived, he found the Confederation soldiers already warming up. Their scales now a uniform blue of determination. You look ready today, he observed. We are, Jiwoo replied. We're ready to learn. The day's exercise was more challenging than before. The teams had to cross a river, climb a steep hill, and reach a target while under constant simulated fire. But this time, something was different. When a Confederation soldier was wounded by a paint marker, Taehyuk immediately moved to help, just as Yoonji had done for him. Other Confederation soldiers created covering fire. They worked together in ways they never had before. Sergeant Do-hyun watched with growing approval as the mixed team moved as one unit, protecting their weakest members, ensuring no one was left behind. When they finally reached the target, all members intact, Do-hyun called them together. That, he said with a broad smile, is how humans fight wars. Jiwoo felt her scales shift to bright green, the color of pride. And now it's how the Confederation fights, too. That evening, a special visitor arrived at the training base. Admiral Taeho had come to observe the joint training program's progress. Jiwoo and Do-hyun reported to his temporary office. Commander Jiwoo, Taeho greeted her. Sergeant Do-hyun, I've been reading your reports with great interest. Thank you, Admiral, Jiwoo replied. The training has been educational. I can see that from the observation footage, Taeho said. Your team performed remarkably well today. Very un-Confederation-like. That's a compliment, sir, Jiwoo said. We're learning to combine our strengths with human tactics. Taeho turned to Do-hyun. Sergeant, what is your assessment of our soldiers? Do-hyun stood straight. They're exceptional fighters, Admiral. Strong, fast, disciplined. They just needed to learn that sometimes the logical choice isn't the best choice. Explain, Taeho requested. In battle, if you abandon your wounded to achieve an objective more efficiently, you might win that battle, Do-hyun said. But you lose something more important, the absolute trust of your soldiers. When fighters know they will never be abandoned, they fight harder. They take risks they otherwise wouldn't. They become more than the sum of their parts. Taeho's membrane fluttered thoughtfully. Professor Dong-hyun suggested something similar in his report on human history. He called it morale, an intangible factor that can overcome material disadvantages. Exactly, Do-hyun agreed. It's why smaller human forces have defeated larger ones throughout our history. It's not just about numbers or technology. It's about what's in here. He tapped his chest. Heart, Jiwoo said, using the human word. They fight with heart. Taeho looked at the training field through the window. Human and Confederation soldiers were eating together, talking, sharing stories. The High Council was skeptical about this joint training program, he admitted. Many believed we should simply learn human technology and tactics without this. Cultural exchange. They were wrong, Jiwoo said firmly. What makes humans effective isn't just what they know, it's who they are, Taeho nodded slowly. I'm beginning to understand that, and I believe it will change the Confederation in ways we never expected. He turned back to them. The joint exploration mission leaves in 2 weeks. I want graduates from this program on that ship. They'll be ready. Admiral, Do-hyun promised. As they left the Admiral's office, Jiwoo felt a new sensation, something she had never experienced in her military career. The humans called it hope. Not just hope for victory or survival, but hope for something better. A new way of fighting, a new way of living. Sergeant, she said as they walked back to the training field. Thank you for teaching us. Do-hyun smiled. The learning goes both ways, Commander. Your soldiers have taught us much about discipline and precision. Together, we're creating something new. Yes, Jiwoo agreed, her scales bright with possibility, something better than either of us had alone. 5 years after the alliance began, the joint Human Confederation vessel Harmony moved through space toward the edge of known territory. The ship was unlike any built before, a perfect blend of Confederation technology and human design. Its sleek hull contained the most advanced engines, weapons, and scientific equipment from both species. On the bridge stood Admiral Taeho and his human counterpart, Admiral Minji. Once enemies in battle, they now served as co-commanders of the most advanced exploration ship ever built. Sensors detecting unusual energy patterns from the nebula ahead, reported Science Officer Jinwoo. His scale shifted to bright orange with excitement. The readings match nothing in our database. Confirmed, added Lieutenant Yuna, the human sensor specialist. She studied her screen carefully. These patterns are definitely artificial. Someone built something in there. Taeho and Minji exchanged glances. In 5 years of joint exploration, they had discovered 7 new habitable worlds and made contact with 2 peaceful species. But this would be different. The energy readings were far more advanced than anything they had encountered before. First Contact Protocol Alpha, suggested Taeho, referring to the Confederation's traditional approach of showing technological strength, followed by peaceful communication. Minji shook her head. I recommend Protocol Omega. Protocol Omega was new, developed jointly after the Human Confederation Alliance formed. It emphasized minimal presence, cultural respect, and defensive readiness without showing aggression. Agreed, said Taeho after a moment's thought. 5 years ago, such agreement would have seemed impossible. Now it felt natural. Reduce power to all non-essential systems, Minji ordered. Maintain defensive shields at minimum visibility. Prepare first contact package for transmission. The bridge crew, a mix of humans and Confederation members, moved with practiced efficiency. They had trained together for years, learning each other's strengths and methods. As they prepared the approach, Professor Dong-hyun entered the bridge. Now serving as the mission's chief cultural expert, he had spent years studying both species' histories and helping them understand each other. A historic moment, he observed, looking at the nebula on the main screen. The first truly joint contact mission. Nervous, Professor? Asked Minji with a small smile. Cautiously hopeful, he replied. Our species complement each other in ways no one expected. The Confederation brings 12,000 years of knowledge and technological advancement. Humanity brings our unpredictability, suggested Minji. Your humanity, corrected Dong-hyun. Your ability to see beyond efficiency and calculation. Your willingness to risk everything for principles. Taeho nodded slowly. We thought we knew war, then we met humans. Now we're learning there are many things we didn't know, and many things we're still learning together, added Minji as the Harmony moved forward into the colorful gases of the nebula. That's what exploration is all about. Inside the nebula, visibility was limited. The gases glowed in beautiful colors, blues, purples, and greens, but they blocked normal sensors. Switching to gravitational mapping, Jinwoo announced. Beginning scan. The main screen changed to show a three-dimensional map of the space around them. At first it showed only gas clouds and small rocks. Then something appeared, a massive structure floating in the center of the nebula. That's enormous, whispered Yuna, at least 20 kilometers across. The structure was unlike anything they had seen before. It wasn't a ship or a station. It looked more like a giant web made of metal and light with countless small objects moving around it. Life signs? Asked Taiho. Difficult to tell through the nebula, Jinwoo replied. But I'm detecting energy patterns consistent with advanced technology. We're being scanned, Yuna suddenly announced. Something is... Wait, they're transmitting. The main screen flickered, then showed a strange image. It wasn't a face or a body, but a shifting pattern of light and color. Is this communication? Minji wondered. Professor Dongyun moved closer to the screen. I believe so, but not in any form we recognize. Can we respond? Asked Taeho. We can try our standard first contact package, Yuna suggested. Basic mathematical sequences, simple images, peaceful intentions. Do it, Minji ordered. The ship sent the carefully prepared message, the same one used successfully with other species. But the response was unexpected. The pattern of lights changed rapidly, becoming more complex. They're sending something back, Jinwoo reported. It's entering our computer system. Security protocols active? Taeho asked quickly. Yes, Admiral. The data is being contained in the isolated first contact buffer. The main screen changed again, now showing a three-dimensional model of the Harmony. Then to everyone's surprise, it showed images of both humans and Confederation members. They're studying us, Donghyun said with wonder, and they're learning very quickly. The images changed again, now showing the history of both species, battles, peace treaties, and finally the alliance. The images moved faster and faster, as if the mysterious beings were absorbing years of history in seconds. How are they getting this information? Minji asked, concerned. Unknown, Jinwoo replied, but they're not accessing our secure databases. They seem to be. Extrapolating from the basic cultural package we sent. Suddenly the screen cleared. In its place appeared a simple message in both human and Confederation languages. Two become one. Interesting. Approach. The command team gathered in the conference room to discuss this unexpected invitation. It could be a trap, said Security Chief Hana, a veteran of Earth's defense forces. Possible, agreed her Confederation counterpart, Security Officer Minjun. But why lure us closer? Their technology clearly surpasses ours. They could attack from where they are. I don't think it's hostile, Professor Dongyun said. Their message shows interest in our alliance specifically. Two become one. They're fascinated by our cooperation. Admiral Taiho's membrane fluttered thoughtfully. 5 years ago, the Confederation would have approached with a show of force, ready for conflict. What would humans have done? Minji smiled slightly. 5 years ago? We would have been cautious, defensive, ready to run if necessary. She looked around the table. But we're neither of those species anymore, are we? We're something new. Protocol Omega was designed for exactly this situation, Dongyun reminded them. Approach with respect and caution, but without fear. After further discussion, they reached a decision. The Harmony would approach the structure, maintaining defensive systems at ready but not aggressive. They would continue communication and see what they could learn from this new intelligence. As the ship moved closer to the massive structure, more details became visible. What had looked like a web from a distance was actually an intricate network of energy pathways connecting thousands of small objects, each one about the size of a human hand. They're machines, Yuna realized, studying her sensor readings. Or partly machines. I'm detecting organic components too. A collective intelligence, suggested Jinwoo. Many small units working as one. That would explain their interest in our alliance, Donghyun said. They may see a parallel to their own existence. The main screen activated again, showing the same pattern of lights, but now forming into a shape that resembled the combined symbols of Earth and the Confederation. They're trying to communicate more directly, Minji observed. Responding to our approach, a new message appeared. Different paths, same journey, share knowledge. Taiho and Minji exchanged glances. This was the moment of truth, the real test of their alliance. 5 years ago, both would have been suspicious, protective of their species' secrets. Now they had a different perspective. We would be honored to share knowledge, Minji responded, and to learn from you as well. The screen changed again, showing a docking area on the massive structure, an invitation. Prepare a shuttle, Taiho ordered. Mixed crew, scientific and diplomatic personnel. You're going? Asked Jinwoo, his scales shifting to concerned blue. Both of us are, Minji confirmed. This is too important for caution. As they prepared for the historic meeting, Taiho found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. From enemies to allies to friends, from misunderstanding to cooperation to unity. Admiral, Minji said quietly as they boarded the shuttle. Do you ever think about how differently this could have gone, if we had continued fighting instead of making peace? Often, Taiho admitted. The Confederation would have sent more ships. Earth would have fought harder. Both sides would have suffered greatly. And we would never have discovered this, Minji said, looking at the amazing structure growing larger in the viewport. We would have been too busy destroying each other to explore together. As the shuttle approached the mysterious structure, Taiho felt something he had never experienced in his 3 centuries of life, a sense of unlimited possibility. Not just for the Confederation, not just for humanity, but for something greater than either. We thought we knew war, he said softly, until we met humans. Now we're learning something even more important. What's that? Asked Minji. How to build something better than either of us could create alone, Taiho replied as the shuttle docked with the alien structure. And that lesson may be the most valuable discovery in the history of both our species.